We are going to learn a method called synthetic division. Now, synthetic division we will use next week, and we'll use it in a way to identify x-intercepts on a graph or within a function. Today, we're going to learn this method called synthetic division, and what we're going to do is we are going to plug 2 in as the input, and we'll be able to figure out what is the output of this function, again, when x is 2. I would like you to make a large L. It's important that this part is deep so we can write multiple numbers down in this area. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to look at the equation, and I want you to identify what is the highest exponent. So it's not always going to be in order. What's the highest exponent on a variable? And it is 4. And now we're going to count backwards all the way to 0 every time. So writing very small, we're going to leave space to put a number in front. So x to the 4th. Leave space, x to the 3rd, x to the 2nd, the 1st, all the way back to x to 0. And underneath x to 0, you're going to put a box. And in that place, we will have our final answer. Okay, so what we've done is we've made our L. We've identified the degree, which is the highest exponent. And now we're going to come back and we're going to put in the corresponding coefficients. So the leading coefficient of this problem is a 5. The coefficient to x cubed is a positive 3. The coefficient to x squared is a negative 12. The coefficient to x the first is a positive 5. The constant, which means no x's x to 0, is a positive 10. Now we want to take the value they provide us, and that's like our magical number. So everything we do to multiply comes back to this magical number outside. And now we're going to follow, which is not a mathematical acronym. It's something I've made up. So D means drop down. We take whatever is the first number inside and we drop it down. So we're going to drop down 5 for this problem. And everything after this is all procedural. We're going to multiply, we add down. We're going to multiply and we add down. And we continue to multiply, add down until the problem is done. Okay, are you ready? When we multiply, it's always with this number. So multiply to get what's 2 times 5? 10. I've multiplied. Now I'm going to add down. 3 plus 10 is 13. Okay, M, I'm going to multiply again. Whenever I multiply, I come back to this outside number. 13 times 2 is 26. I've multiplied. Now I'm going to add straight down. Negative 12 and positive 26. Well, they're different signs, so I subtract. And do I end up with 14? I believe so. Positive 14. So I've added down. I just keep going. M-A, M-A until we're done. Okay, when I multiply, I always come back to this number. 2 times 14 is 28. I've multiplied. Now I add down. 5 plus 28 is 33. Okay, I'm going to multiply again. 2 times 33 is 66, and I'm adding down to come up with 76. Now I need to write a mathematical statement for function h. When I substitute, so my input value is 2, the output is 76. This is called synthetic division. I use the acronym DMAMA, but again, it's called synthetic division. So what is the highest exponent we see in a variable? It's called the degree. The highest is? Oh, look at the highest exponent. 3. So I'm going to write 3 all the way down to 0 every single time. So x to the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1st, and to the 0. Now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to look for the coefficients. The leading coefficient is negative 6. What corresponds with x squared? The coefficient is positive 2. X to the first is 3. And the constant without any x's is negative 1. For this problem, we're going to evaluate when x is negative 2. I think of this as like my magical number. Whenever I multiply, it goes back to that number. So again, D, Mama, and we're just going to continue to MA, MA, MA until we get an answer. So D stands for dropping down, dropping down. So drop down that first number. And now I'm doing M-A. So what does M stand for? Multiplying. -2 times -6. -2 times -6 is a positive 12. And I add straight down to come up with 14. Multiplying again. Always multiplying back this magical number. -2 times 14. -2 times 14 is a -28. Adding straight down to get a -25. Just continue to add MAs. -2 times -25 is a positive 50. Adding straight down to get 49. Once I've hit this last number, I can write this mathematical statement. So for this function, 8, when I substitute in -2, that's my input, the output is 49. So the first thing we do is we identify the degree. That means the highest exponent on a variable, which is the number 6. So really small, I'm writing 6, 5, all the way down to 0. Whatever the number is, you're going to go count backwards to 0. And underneath the x to 0 is where you're going to make the box. That's where your final answer is going to be. Now for this problem, this is a little more confusing than the first two that we did. So what number is associated with x to the 6th? 5. What number is associated with x to the 5th? There is no x to the 5th. So if it's not there, what number do you associate with nothing? If you have nothing, what number do you have? You have 0, right? 0. Is there any x to the 4th? X to the 3rd? Nope. Okay, now we can finally see we have a coefficient with x squared, which is 2. We have a coefficient with x, which is -1. And the constant is 3. The magical number that I'm going to be evaluating is positive 3. I would like you with your partner to go ahead, work through this problem. I'll press pause and we'll come back and finish it. Through this together. So we have the acronym D, mama. So drop down first. So I dropped down the first digit. And now I'm going to multiply to get 15. And then I add straight down to get 15. Then I multiply. That's really ugly, 15. 15 times 3 is 45. I got to keep myself organized here because I'm a sloppy with my math. I add straight down to get 45. And I just keep multiplying and adding until I'm done. 45 times 3 is a total of, you guys are helping me out, is 135. And I add straight down to get 135. I multiply again. 135 times 3 is 405. I add down to end up with 407. I'm multiplying 407 times 3, and I end up with 1,221. I add down to get 1,220. I multiply to end up with 3,660, and I add down to get 3,663. The statement would be function C. When I input 3, I get an output of 3,663. Okay, here we go. So dropping down for the D, and then it's multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Here we go. Multiply to get -2, add down to get -2. Multiply to get -4, add down to get 0. Multiply to get 0, add down to get -1. Multiply to get -2, add down to get 0. So, how do I write this? For function f, when I input in 2, I get an answer or an output.